From what you've seen, how much has Jackson improved from last season?
Exponentially. I think he's just more comfortable in what he's doing. He's got some really good targets in Andrews and Hurst and Brown. I think that running game really gets them started. They're able to get out to some good leads, and once you get behind in the game with them, it's hard to catch back up because he's just going to continue to keep converting and keep getting positive yards.
That's the key to stopping a guy like that. Mike was talking yesterday. You're going to have a lot of one-on-one opportunities in open space, and you guys are going to have to make those plays.
Yeah, definitely. We got to make those tackles. When we had a one-on-one chance with him in space, he does a great job making people miss. So, we just can't really. When you hold him back, he's going to make you miss anyway. So, you got.
And now, time to get in the huddle with your host, Charles Prodigy Ritchie, here on the Mass Steel Podcast.
This thing belongs to Mr. Roney, belongs here, and let's see if we can bring this damn thing back here next year, along with the Super Bowl. Here we go.
The game is over. The Pittsburgh Steelers did it the hard way.
With the 10th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Devin Bush, linebacker, Michigan.
And welcome back, everybody, to this edition of the Mass Steel Podcast here with yours truly, Charles Prodigy Ritchie. As you can catch me throughout the week, Mondays and Wednesdays. Had to adjust the time a little bit here. As right now, we are getting ready for Steelers-Ravens week right now. Going into this matchup, the Steelers lead the all-time series 25-21. The last game they met was back in Baltimore a year ago, which Steelers evened up the series, and they won that score by a foul, 23-16. Remember, that game was most notably remembered was last time Joe Flacco was under center for the Ravens as a starter. But towards the end, remember, too, the Steelers get a little taste of Lamar Jackson. I think it was around like the fourth quarter in that game. Steelers did hold on to win, but the Ravens eventually got the last laugh as they went on an incredible run. I want to say the Ravens won 6 out of the remaining 7 games, I want to say. And the only loss they had was against, ironically, who it started with this year, was against the Kansas City Chiefs. And, of course, followed up, this year, by the Chiefs and then by the Browns. And, of course, the only playoff loss being against the LA Chargers. As you just heard earlier on, beginning to start the show, you heard defensive teammates. You heard Captain Cam Hayward talk about their preparations. They get ready for Lamar Jackson and this new-look Ravens offense. We got a little bit of news we're going to get into right now. The Steelers just made another signing to the practice squad, but they had to release one player. We'll get to him in just a moment. And plus, got a few little articles here posted up by Dale Lally of DK Pittsburgh Sports. As you can follow him on Twitter, of course, Dale Lally. You can follow that DLally_PJH. We'll get to that in just a little bit second. But plus, we got some stuff for fair or foul here coming up. Again, if you guys want, feel free to get in the conversation. Number to be reached is 312-209-2232. Again, that number is 312-209-2232. You can also follow me on my Twitter at Prodigy Ritchie. Check out the show streaming live as well on Instagram, Men of Steel Nation. You can also check out my YouTube channel, Men of Steel Podcast. We get ready to move further a little bit along here on this day. The Steelers, once again, they find themselves back in business, trying to salvage their season right now. It's definitely been an up and down season, to say the least, starting off. I mean, when you look at how everything's unfolded, but I mean, look at where they're at right now. You find yourselves, thanks in huge part to the Browns, beating the Ravens in Baltimore for the second time since 2015, ever since their return to Cleveland. And you look at it, and here's where it stands right now. So the Steelers do find themselves a game out of first place at 1-3 currently at this point in time. Remember, if they are able to defeat the Ravens and the Browns lose to the 49ers, which they play in San Francisco on Monday night in Santa Clara, technically, if those two scenarios were to happen, the Steelers win, Browns lose, they can find themselves in a tie in the division, but technically, with it being a tie, the Steelers would own the tiebreaker over everybody simply because they would improve to a 2-0 record in the AFC North. So that's a big thing to pay attention for right now. I mean, I know it's too early to start looking at tiebreakers, but technically they would be in first place, even though it's solo, but they would have one of the tiebreakers in their favor as of right now. So that's a really huge plus, considering how things went off the rails for the first 3 games. I mean, of course, when you lose your quarterback during the second game of the season, only to find out the next day that Ben Roethlisberger, who was in the 16th season, signed a 2-year extension. Remember, back in April, right before the draft, and then only to see it kind of like down spiral and backfire in their face a little bit. Now he's going to be on season-ending elbow surgery. And you got a guy like Mason Rudolph right now who is 1-1 as a starter. And I remember there's been a lot of comments too about Mike Tomlin, using like the Wildcat. I mean, there was just a little bit of hesitation right there, but he obviously had enough trust in his guys where he felt like he didn't want to give Mason Rudolph too much overexposure. And I respect that. And the thing is, too, when you really think about it, I think you want to just continue to build this guy some confidence real quick here. You want to be able to not put too much pressure on him early. I know a lot of people have been, and people in the media have been like a little skeptical right now, saying that he needs to start throwing the deep ball a little bit more as time evolves. Listen, I'm going to say this. I mean, obviously, you don't want to keep doing too much Wildcat or doing too much of the same thing, where defenses are going to start reading you. They're going to start eventually figuring you out and start picking you apart. But at the same time, too, I'd rather have confidence no matter, however you got to get this guy going, to rally around this guy. Listen, at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, it's all about wins. At the end of the day, I think what you got to think about, this is the time right now where you have to look at and say, hey, this is the business at hand. This is what we got to do. And I think if you just keep it simplified, like I said, I'm from Chicago, and I look at how the Bears did things with Mitch Trubisky. Of course, he had funky mechanics, but the whole point of the matter is you want to be able to at least build it around him. You want to have guys playing around each other. You want to have guys that are going to be supportive right there. I don't care if it's got to be like, quick screen passes to your running backs or however you got to do it. But the thing is, at the end of the day, you want to keep this simplified as all possible. You want to be able to at least improve on your third down conversions, which has still been one of their Achilles heel this year. You got to convert at least more than 30% of your conversions. That's just not going to cut it at the end of the day for a team who's looking to make strides and still make some noise, not only in the division, but the NFL as being a playoff team. A lot of people were really ready to count this team down out. Once they got to that 0-3 hole, that's the bottom line. We've seen this happen in 2013. Obviously, Mike Tomlin, when being asked about it, of course, he's not going to be, worried looking back like 6 years in the past. But the thing is, at the end of the day, like he always says, he wants to focus on this group, maximize the potential, what he could do so far. And that's the thing, what you really got to do as a coach. You want to keep your guys focused on now. Even Bill Cowher said best. One of the Hall of Honor inductees for the Steelers recently, as of this past weekend, that you just got to take one game at a time. And that's really what it's all about. Because remember, a similar time at that point when they won their Super Bowl since the 1970s Steel Curtain dynasty. Remember, the Steelers at one point they were 7-5 after losing a crucial game to the Bengals at home, which the Bengals eventually won the division. Steelers basically won out to secure themselves a number 6 wild card spot. And they just did one game at a time. I mean, it started off with like the Chicago Bears. Then you also had followed up by a road game against the Vikings. And then on the road in Cleveland, which they shut out on Christmas Eve. And then last but not least, the Detroit Lions. And then boom, you go from there. And then they made damage control in the playoffs. I mean, obviously, one of the biggest things, they knocked out Carson Palmer in that first round. Then rematched Peyton Manning and the Colts from an embarrassing Monday night loss they had earlier in the season. And then, of course, too, when you also look at it, they also beat the Broncos in Denver. I mean, who they really kind of like struggle with historically. I think like in the playoffs overall, especially since like the post 70s dynasty. But I mean, still, that was kind of like a demon they had to conquer right there. Then you get to like a storybook ending where it's in Jerome Bettis' hometown in Detroit. You win the Super Bowl right there. And then there you go. I mean, it was a championship for the records. One of the first teams to win it at such a lower seeding, especially for a wild card team. They definitely had a lot to be proud of. I mean, when you really look at it all together, as far as what they had to depend on each other accountability wise. And I still think this is a group that could still do that right here. I mean, you gotta want to be able to have like the willpower. I mean, just guys like want to step up. And we'll see what happens here. I think this is a team who's not ready to be having dirt thrown on them yet and be taken to the graveyard just yet. This is a team who really plays with a lot of pride right now. And yeah, I mean, when you look at all across too, besides that, I mean, when you look at this season too, I mean, going into this Sunday's matchup, when we get ready for Steelers-Ravens, another edition of AFC North football, I mean, at this point in time, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, this year overall, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, obviously there's been a few noticeable changes, but still, I mean, at the same time, a guy like John Harbaugh makes it work. I mean, the Ravens who actually come into this game going up against the Steelers at this point in time, which, by the way, who are coming in with a 27th total defense, while the Pittsburgh Steelers are into this game at 20th overall, surrendering 1,500 yards total, 1,501 actually, as a matter of fact. But I mean, a team that's building with some confidence right now. But then when you look to what they did on Monday night, guess what? That 8-sack total game they had, they're top 5 in sack totals right now with 14 for the season, with Carolina Panthers leading the way with 18. So it just goes to show you how things could change in an instant once you get guys on the same level as far as like as a unit and playing focused football, 60 minutes of physical football at the end of the day. You could still, I mean, a lot of people were critical of the adjustments that lack thereof that Mike Tomlin makes. But at the end of the day, I mean, remember like Mike Tomlin always says, it may not be pretty, but we'll always be fighting for each other in the end. Now let's get into some other stuff here on the opening drive right here. As right now, Dale Lally was saying he asked Mike Tomlin what it meant to his team to have Roethlisberger on the sideline Monday night when the Steelers did defeat the Bengals in dominating fashion, 27-3, more so in part of their defense, but also some of the wild card plays that were involved and some of the nice running back screens and trickery plays. But Tomlin was saying too on that when he was talking with Dale Lally, he was just saying as regards to Roethlisberger, nothing, just in terms of playmaking. I mean, and I think that's the true thing right there. When you got a guy like Ben Roethlisberger who's taking a back seat for right now, due to injury right now, I mean, you gotta think a guy like him, it comes with a little higher standard at some point. Yeah, he may not be in the driver's seat, but I think there was a few like interesting points now because I'm listening to like 93.7 The Fan throughout the week too. When you have like a veteran quarterback like that, he may not be open to some ideas as far as like having some wildcat plays in there, coming to the equation, or be like a little bit skeptic. I mean, you probably figure a guy like Ben Roethlisberger would still have a big say as far as like what's run when he would communicate with his coaching staff. I mean, he's not going to be necessarily the guy that has final say, but he's definitely a guy he has right to earn the respect where he's been at and playing this game as long as he had for 15 full seasons so far. I mean, at the end of the day, the guy does know what it takes to win, even though he's had the luxury of riding good defenses earlier on in his career. And that's where you really got to think about. I mean, at this point in time, I really feel like right now, this is a unit. It's a unified unit right now, a team. And you look at, so let's get into some other stuff here on the opening drives. We get ready to transition from that. Also, too, right now, Tomlin was saying when you have a young quarterback, one of the ways you could help him is to turn a 70-play game into a 50-play game. And of course, he was referring to utilization of James Conner. Remember, James Conner, who had 125 total yards, by the way, in that game. And I want to just get back to like the poll that I posted up prior to the game on Monday night. I was asking people which one of you guys thought was going to have like the better rushing stat for the night between James Conner and Jalen Samuels. Well, of course, the winner is James Conner, 24 of the 23 in favor of Conner right there, who, which by the way, definitely did enough right there. I mean, at the same time too. I mean, listen, this is a guy who's been soul searching, trying to find his way back since having that concussion against the Carolina Panthers. I mean, you've been waiting to see him at least get some runs or whatever. But I mean, at the same time, right now, that when you really look at it, I mean, he hasn't had a lot of help as far as like holes being opened up for the offensive line. I mean, the offensive line, it's been kind of like a double-edged sword in a way when you look at how they've been like trying to open things up, how they've been trying to help each other. I mean, yeah, I mean, the Steelers are towards the bottom as far as in the running game. And mainly, it's like almost they're trying to find that identity, who's going to be that guy. But at the same time, they're just trying to replace some of the production when you have like as talented acquisitions in a running back and wide receiver. I'm not going to get back into the names, but you can obviously tell I was getting ready to refer to you know who. But at the same time, too, this is what it is right now. This is a team who's trying to regain that respectability of Steeler football. I mean, just be physical on the defensive front, and on the defensive side of it, and of course, try and grind out your opponents with your running game, and we'll see what happens. Again, if you want, feel free to get in the conversation. Number to be reached is 312-209-2232. Again, that number is 312-209-2232. You can also follow me on Twitter at Prodigy Richie, as well as catch my Instagram stream, Men of Steel Nation. Feel free to check out my YouTube channel, which is streaming right now, Men of Steel Podcast. And also, too, right now, let's go into some surprise moves that was made. And right now, remember LJ Fort, who was part of the Steelers not too long in distant memory right now, which, by the way, was a linebacker. He last played for the Steelers about last year, played in 15 games. He only had 4 pass deflections and a sack. Right now, he's been released by the Philadelphia Phillies in a surprise move. And right now, and I'm going to tell you how important this possibly could be for the futures down the road, because this definitely has a significant impact, because right now, the Eagles, who definitely signed right now, LJ Fort at that point in time. Remember, I mean, during the offseason, and this was reported by Dale Lally of DK Pittsburgh Sports. At the same time, he was signed to a 3-year, $5.5 million deal as an unrestricted free agent and played a team high 75 special team snaps in their first 3 games of the season. But right now, they released him last week, helping their compensatory formula as quoted by Dale Lally, while hurting that of the Steelers. According to Over the Cap, the Eagles could gain a 4th round compensation pick just for the release of Fort, who was signed this week by the Ravens, while the Steelers could use their compensation drop for Le'Veon Bell. So there's a real good chance right now they may not be able to get a third-round compensatory pick because of that, because the Eagles releasing him so early. It's basically like saying that him playing with Eagles, that didn't really come to much fruition or didn't really happen as much. So that's the thing right there. So that's one thing to pay attention right there. That may be another thing that might just backfire. But again, because the Eagles decided to release them, now we find ourselves in a predicament right now. And then also too, when Dale Lally also was not quick to point out as a reminder too, which by the way, when you look at it, because this possibly could count, Dante Moncrief, his job, as a matter of fact. And remember, you had like right here at this point in time, which by the way, right now, you signed Dante Moncrief for the Steelers at this point in time. He was signed back in March, I want to say. I'm looking at over the cap.com real quick, just a quick reminder. He signed a 2-year, $9 million contract with the Steelers on March 15th and received a $3.5 million signing bonus and earning a $500,000 roster bonus if on the roster by the third day of the 2020 league year. The sad thing is about it, though, too, despite his struggles in the first 2 games of the season, or 3, I guess you could say, they hardly utilized him. Since that week 2 loss to Seattle and him dropping as much as 7 passes in the first game on the road against the Patriots, this is a guy right now who's definitely been scapegoated by a lot of fans right now, and we're not impressed with his hands right now. He's been dropping a lot of valuable passes right there, which really hurt the Steelers to kickstart their season in an upbeat way. Right now, you see a team right now who is trying to really do everything they can to grind things out. But at the same time, too, it's just, I think of it and look at it this way, is that, you sign this guy on the cheap, pretty much right now. A $9 million contract, which is not all that bad. But although it's just what's going to end up happening. How is he going to be able to get his confidence back for the Steelers and regain the trust of his coach? In there. Obviously your teammates are going to support you, but at the same time too, you got to realize this is something right now where you got to start waking up. If you can make some impact moves, throughout the year, we'll see. But right now, I'm not too sure how it's going to bowl well with a lot of fans right now. If he's going to come back, is he going to do something this week against the Ravens? It's going to be utilized in something special. Obviously, you don't want to give up on the guy too early, too soon, but we'll find out. But this is a key game right here this week against the Ravens right now, as this has always been one of the close, toughest, if arguably probably the number one rivalry in the NFL. In recent memory. I'm not going to necessarily say all time, but I definitely would like to hear your thoughts right now, aside from being a Steeler fan, but just also watching the NFL. Where would you rank this rivalry all time? Is it number 1 or is it in your top 5? I want to hear from you. Please leave me your comments in the stream real quick here. I would definitely like to hear back from you right now. If you don't feel like this is number 1, I want to hear who you think your number 1 rivalry is all time. Name your top 5 when we get ready to go into this at this point in time. Also, some other Steeler news right now, as reported by Missy Matthews of Steelers.com. She can be followed on Twitter at Missy_Matthews. She's a Steelers reporter, as a host of Steelers Live. The Steelers released Elise Mack from the practice squad. He was a tight end, and they signed quarterback from South Dakota, Taryn Christian, from, like I said, South Dakota State. He was recently picked up by the Cowboys during training camp, and did quite a number of reps throughout that point in time. So for right now, I mean, when you look at the overall roster on this team and you look at it, so I mean, when you look at your quarterback positioning, you still got Mason Rudolph, you got Devlin Hodges right now, and then when you look at overall, I mean, like the practice squad, it looks like they parted ways. Let's see. No, they still got Paxton Lynch on there, so he's still on there, but that was a noble move of the day. And it was another surprise move. So they decided to move on for Lees Mack and bring another quarterback right now, Taron Christian from South Dakota State. So that's one thing to keep an eye on right now. I don't know how that's if he's gonna be even make it onto like the roster. But remember, Paxton Lynch, he was a first round pick, I believe, back in 2016 when the Broncos moved on from Peyton Manning after he decided to hang it up after the 2015 season. So he went out on top with a Super Bowl victory, riding off his defense. And just a good way to go on top for one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, if you ask me, who played this game, as well as a great skill-wise position and did a lot for this game. I mean, if you ask me, and as far as like help revolutionizing the position when it was passed on from, I want to say, Brett Favre, Dan Marino, you could make the argument for. I mean, at that point in time. So that's how I look at it right there. But yeah, I'm not sure what that's going to mean going forward, but definitely be interested to see if he even makes like the actual roster. Now let's get ready to get into some fair or foul real quick here. And I only got like one topic for the night. The Steelers, with their compensatory pick plans for Le'Veon Bell, now with the Eagles releasing unrestricted free agent LJ Fort, who signed a deal in the offseason right this past year, do you think this is going to still hurt their chances of not getting a compensatory pick for Le'Veon Bell? I'm going to have to say fair for right now. Obviously, there's going to have to be a wait to see what unfolds. But I tell you what, right now, I mean, so it's kind of like pretty much kills like what you could have gotten in return for him. But at the same time, I think the Steelers will justify it too by saying that they were able to move up 10 spots and to get Devin Bush. I mean, at the same time too, I mean, back in the draft and be able to have some openings to get some younger guys on defense and some receivers and, of course, an all-around team. I think the only question you just run into right now, I mean, who they felt like they gave Bell a fair deal when they tried to sign him to an extension. They tried to offer him decent guaranteed money. It wasn't the asking price that he was looking for. But at the end of the day, too, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, this was a guy who right now, at this point in time, you're expecting to get some sort of like a recouped up value for him still, even in that time. So let's find out. Let's wait and see on that. But other than that, this Saturday, I'm going to do another pregame show here for the Man of Steel podcast. Tune in this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to get into a little bit more keys to the game as the Steelers get ready for Steelers-Ravens. Definitely want to hear your favorite moments as far as Steelers-Ravens history. I'm going to definitely tell you right now, if I had to choose 3 moments all time, I'm definitely going to go with it in this order. I'm going to have to say number 1 was beating the Ravens in the AFC Championship game back in 2008 when they went to Super Bowl 43 and the Steelers won their 6th and final Super Bowl, which was the record at the time, separating themselves from the 49ers and the Cowboys, who had 5. Number 2, I would have to go with Ben Roethlisberger for the 2nd straight week in a row, throwing 6 touchdown passes after doing what he did to the Colts a week earlier in that game. It was also the same night, which, by the way, they retired Mean Joe Green's number. I got a friend who I'm friends with, who, by the way, was who kind of had a little bit of a disagreement with me. I'm talking about Terrell, and he was saying that because he was actually at that AFC Championship game as well as Mean Joe Green retirement ceremony, and he begged to differ. He felt like the Mean Joe Green retirement ceremony being there was meant more so versus like the AFC Championship game. Not that the AFC Championship game wasn't special to him. He definitely valued both of them. But he felt like if he had to choose one, it would definitely be just watching a legend who helped turn this organization around big time. When you think about him, the pairing with him and Chuck Noll and the defense they were able to build and get some key pieces on offense with your quarterback, your receivers, your running back, and then, of course, a center and a defensive and a decent offensive line. And number 3 for me, I have to say the Bloody Nose game back in 2010, where the Steelers lost the first game of the season behind backup quarterback Charlie Batch. Even though they did go 3-0, this is where Ben Roethlisberger was supposed to have a 6-game suspension in the 2010 season to start, but was able to get reduced down to 4. They went 3-0, almost had a 4-0 record, a perfect record without Ben Roethlisberger, but they lost it late. And I blame a lot of that too. I mean, not just were they not getting enough separation, it was a tight-knit game all the way through, but Brad Wing, when they had to punt the ball away, punted like inside Steelers territory, and the Ravens kind of had a real good short field to work with, bomb away a touchdown a few plays later, ended up winning the ball game. But that second game in 2010, I mean, remember Troy Polamalu was able to get a nice strip sack fumble on Joe Flacco right there, recover it, and the Steelers were able to get the winning touchdown score, I want to say, by Isaac Redmond in that game. So those are my top 3 moments of Steelers-Ravens history. Like I said, for me, number 1, it'd be the Steelers defeating the Ravens in the AFC Championship game in 2008 to go to Super Bowl 43. Number 2 would be the Mean Joe Green's retirement ceremony, which, by the way, was a second straight week in a row where Ben Roethlisberger lit up another defense and threw for 6 touchdown passes. Second straight week of 6 touchdown passes. And last but not least, of course, the Bloody Nose game in 2010, where the Steelers evened up the series. They went on to win the division. That was their final Super Bowl appearance later on in that season, even though they lost to the Packers. So, again, I want to just thank you, everybody, for all the patience with me, pulling up me here. Sorry if I misled anyone or had a lot of delays here, but always appreciate the support, the feedback, the likes, the comments. Thank you very much for buying my heart, and it's a pleasure keeping you informed here on Steeler Nation and all the fans right here. As always, leave you. Don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone.